Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our viewers all over the world. Welcome to Kenny Bar's World Outreach. My name is Kenny Bazwaye. Another beautiful day to be alive, and today we are going to be talking about things that are very unique. We are still on the matter, as you can see to my left, to my right, I believe. You can see we're celebrating Edo State at 30. It's a continuous thing. The beautiful thing about celebrating Edo at 30 is celebrating Edo at 30 plus. So we're talking about after, now, and then before, and then future. Today, joining us is another, a mother to all of us all, a woman that has represented the country, represented the state, even at the level of World Bank. She is very economical when it comes to talking about herself. We were able to bring her on to the front line and ask our mother to join us today. Our mother, join me to welcome our mother all the way from Lagos, Madam Julie Oyego. Mommy, welcome to GBKM today. How are you today? Mother Julia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
How are you? How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm blessed and highly favored. It's a delight to have you today. I cannot introduce you to the best. I would have loved to because you have a lot under your belt. Please give us the singular honor to allow you to at least do a formal introduction of yourself, Mommy.
Well, I'm currently the chairperson for the planning committee for the anniversary Edo State at 30. As you say, 30 plus, because of course we're looking backwards to learn from what we've done well, what happened. So, we're taking an assessment of the current situation in the country, particularly as pertains to our state. And of course, we're projecting and hoping that under the guidance of this current administration, we can lay the foundation for making Edo great again. So it's quite a loaded agenda. Looking back, standing still and taking stock, and then looking forward as a result of those two pieces of surveillance, if you like. So that's for me personally. I was called to the Nigerian bar in 1977, so I am a genuine old lawyer, and done various things since then. Most recently, I was the director for the diversity program at the World Bank, and my responsibility was to make sure that it was indeed the World's Bank, that we were hiring people and promoting people, nurturing talent from all over the world, particularly from our client base. I've did some work with the UN for a few years. I worked in South Africa, and I left South Africa as a deputy vice chancellor at a major university there. Prior to South Africa, I worked at the Commonwealth Secretariat, so I've done the multilateral route fairly thoroughly. I don't think there's much left. As I said, I'm a Nigerian trained lawyer, mostly interested in labor law, labor relations. I taught a little bit, obviously, having gone to the university and become a deputy vice chancellor. I taught for some time. So yes, I suppose that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, thank you very much. I'm very humbled. Again, I'm very delighted to be in your presence. Let me start by going quickly on this. How do you maintain and look this very young? What is the secret?
Oh, naturally, to everyone. You know,
But you do.
I don't really have any excesses. I suppose it's the grace of God. If to the extent that I do look, I wish I looked younger. I recovered from COVID in January, so that took its toll. And so one of the things we're doing with the Edo State at 30, is to ensure that it's not so much a celebration as an opportunity for us to mark with all seriousness the travails that we have survived, that gives us the confidence that we will overcome the current travail, and that we will be able to lay the foundation for more efficient, a more rigorous, definitely a reinforced healthcare system that will help us to weather storms like this much better in future.
Wow. Wow, wow. Amazing. Now I'm going to go into the Edo Ateri, as you has mentioned just now. I understand that the governor had initiated planting of trees and so on. And some people will define it as something that is very futuristic. I think it's a great move. But tell us a little bit your experience when it comes to, because you are the chairperson of this Edo Ateri planning team. Tell us what was the focus? What was your primary focus at the onset, and what are your experience?
Well, obviously, COVID has made us postpone many of the things that we would have loved to do. One of them, a big symposium, which might still take place in November, depending on how COVID continues to unfold, to talk about the role of government in promoting an industrial base, supporting an industrial base. It is time for us to take off in a completely new direction. There's very little industrial activity in the state, in Nigeria as a whole, really, truth be told. And therefore we have very high, worryingly high youth unemployment, which I suppose explains a lot of the illegal migration and the fact that our children too often are stranded on either side of the Mediterranean. So jobs, the economy, industrialization were intended as big focus areas for discussion during the Edo State at 30 anniversary, the events to mark the anniversary. But I'm particularly happy that the governor proceeded with this business of planting 10 million trees over the next 10 years. It's a complete reforestation program. It's a huge program. It will span the entire state. Hopefully, all the forest reserves will be revived. But you know, there are always a lot of challenges with these things. It's one thing to plant trees, it's another thing to nurture them and to make sure that they stay planted and actually have the opportunity to grow and give us back our forests. You know, there's an old saying that when the last tree died, the last man died. So there is a symbiotic relationship between our forests and ourselves as human beings. We need the forests. And amongst other threats is urban sprawl. We went to the Sakmoba Forest Reserve, to plant these seedlings just last week, actually, on the 27th, which was exactly the day of our anniversary, August 27th. And it just struck me that the place is barely 30 minutes outside of the Benin city metropolis, which means that the likelihood that there will be encroachment is very high, because of course the villagers will try to sell land and things like this. I mean, we've experienced it in other forest reserves in other parts of the state. So it's going to take forest rangers, community buy-in, traditional rulers making sure that the values and the value of the forest is very clear to communities around the forest reserve. Not to mention the public service, you know, the forestry department, the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment, et cetera, have to continue to treat this as a very serious project, very serious program. Somebody was asking me the other day, so you're going to plant 10 million trees over the next 10 years. How many trees are cut down every year? Which is a very important question. Can we plant trees faster than they're being cut down? So everybody's got to realize that we own the forests, and the forests to a large extent own us. There's a symbiotic relationship between the two of us. We must make sure that we preserve our forests for the quality of air, the quality of soil, I mean, all sorts of reasons. So it's a huge project. And what we did on the 27th was symbolic, but significant.
Wow. I marveled the way you explain it and break it down. You touch all various aspects of it, which is really very, very important. And indeed, it is symbolic. Now, Edo Ateri also was celebrated here in Diaspora. GBKM is broadcasting
Yes.
from Toronto, Canada, and we were privileged to be part of this process to celebrate our dear state at 30. We do understand that Edo was Bende State, and they were Midwestern region before even Bende State. So it's not just
Absolutely.
30 years we're more than that. But celebrating Edo at 30 and looking at it from from the lenses of diasporans, it was remarkable the way it was celebrated. So how did you get around? How did you, the government, and you, under your leadership as a chairperson, come up with including the diasporans in this celebration?
Well, there's a young woman who I have tremendous respect for called Dr. Loretta Guru. And she has the energy of an army, to be honest. And so she was very insistent that the diaspora would play a big role. We had identified that, but we didn't quite know how to access the diaspora. And so when Loretta came with various ideas, I mean, a multitude of ideas, we were very, very relieved and very grateful. And she's done a great job. We also have another person who joined us subsequently, but has proved to be very effective. I can't remember the group she represents now, but her name is Mrs. Obasoha. I think she's based in Texas. So between the two of them, they've done a phenomenal job from the perspective of diaspora, and are working very hard. They did not postpone. They proceeded with their program, whereas we took a segue into the vaccination campaign, the governor's vaccination campaign. We're pretty heavily involved in that, in addition, of course, to the tree planting and things like that. So that there was a role and a place for the diaspora was clear from the very beginning. How we would access the diaspora and what would be done really was arrived at by Loretta and Mrs. Obasanjo. So this was very good.
Wow, I am very happy, I would say, that at least those proposal was looked into, and here we are now today. Now looking into the activities that happened in diaspora, there was celebration in Canada, in Rome. It's still going on as we speak. Hence, we are still on this interview. What comes to your mind when you saw this unfolding?
You know, I was very impressed. Well, look, I've lived in diaspora for many years, for almost 30 years actually. So I wasn't surprised. I wasn't entirely surprised to see the fervor, the passion. You know the saying that there's no more Irish than the Boston Irish. There's something about leaving home and nostalgia, and so our people have done very, very well indeed to, if you like, whip up the fervor across communities all over Europe and America, North America in particular, even Asia, Australia, New Zealand, I mean, Japan, goodness. The response has been fantastic. And I think it's given people all over again a sense of home, a sense of culture, a sense of belonging, a sense of solidarity. And now the governor has set up an agency, a diaspora agency, and I think Loretta's involved in that, and I think Ambassador Biki Waifu is involved in that. So at no time was anybody going to ignore the diaspora. It's very essential to what we're trying to do. If you're going to make Edo great again, if you look at it in terms of remittances from the diaspora home to people at home, that's tremendous. I mean, it's a big part of our, well, not our domestic product at the end of the day, but at least part of our earnings. The other thing, of course, is for the diaspora to look at what happens to those remittances when they get to the state. Are we optimizing? Could they be more productive, you see? You know, what return on investment? What's reasonable? What expectations can you have, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really looking forward to knowing what the agency will be busy with. You know, I hope they hit ground running and that they set for themselves a very ambitious agenda.
In your opinion, this is just your opinion, how do we leverage on this agency, or how do we maximize on this, maximize the ability or the job description that we be posed on this agency? How do we maximize this opportunity when it comes to bridging this bridge between diasporas and those states?
Well, I think the assumption is that people who will be actively involved in this agency understand the needs and the interests of the diaspora, and will come to understand possibly more intimately, depending on how they work with people on the ground in the state, within the state, will come to understand more intimately what is needed and what is possible. You know, there are many things that are needed. You know, it's a smorgasbord of needs, but what is possible? This is the question. Particularly in terms of hitting the ground running. The governor has about 36 months left of this administration. He has created this agency. He always has very high expectations of any entity that he's set up, that he puts his gaze on. So clearly he must have expectations. And I think the thing for the agency to do is to find out exactly, as closely as possible, what those expectations might be, and to see where there's room for maneuver within the span of those expectations, to actually have short, medium, and long-term goals that they can start working on immediately.
In your experience, after the 36 months, how feasible it is to sustain or keep this agency?
Well, it all depends on how well it institutionalizes itself, isn't it? I mean, the governor holds the starter gun, but no one's there forever. And I always say, if you make yourself invaluable, you will be valued. If you don't, well, I think we know the rest of that. So it's for people who are given the opportunity and the privilege to run this thing in the first instance, to really set the tone from the beginning, to have very clear goals, to have scorecards, to have dashboards, to make sure that they subject themselves to performance reviews, that they build the right alliances, and that they're accountable. That there's monitoring and evaluation, and even if they do 2 or 3 things, don't try to change the world in 80 days or anything ridiculous like that. Be very, very clear and very pragmatic about what is necessary and possible. These 2, and get them done. Get them done.
As knowing the stage is set to go by the governor, by at least deeming it fit to set up this agency, we know that has, in some shape or form, fertilized the soil. But give it somebody that was living in diaspora, that's currently in Lagos. One would say that there's usually a resistance when diasporans come home to initiate anything. If that is true, how do we tackle that?
Well, it's all about strategic alliances, isn't it? I mean, everybody asks when they're going into something new, what's in it for me? I mean, this is an inevitable question. So the diasporans are going to be asking that question. Of course, the people on the ground are going to be asking that question. And there's got to be some win-win synergy so that you get more collaboration and cooperation rather than resistance. And it's not just about money. Money is important, but it's not it's how do they put it? It's necessary but not sufficient. Money is you got to have it, but it's not enough. That's not the whole story. And a lot of this is about networking, appropriate networking, strategic networking, making sure that you're building partnerships, because a number of our people do want to leave the country, and there are a host of reasons for that. But one of them is that, particularly for the youth, it's almost like a collapse of options, a failure of options. Some people are leaving universities with perfectly good degrees, no jobs, no capital to start their own businesses, etc., etc. So the diaspora has to come in such a way that it is clearly adding value. And for the diasporans themselves, they've got to have a good return on investment. Otherwise, they might as well take their money elsewhere. And it's not just money, it's skills, and as I said before, networks. So hopefully they'll come up with some win-win synergies that will keep both sides happy.
But talking about skills, we do understand that it's not just money, and That's so correct. It has to do with your love, your passion, and long-term vision, and so on. But however, there are a lot of key, important moving parts that we need to consider when it comes to, I would say, the synergy between the diasporans and Edo State, to be precise. For example, look at the issue of security, the issue of infrastructure. There are a lot of moving parts to this that may impede or may slow the agency to actually exhibit or facilitate most things that they may have in mind. Do you agree to this?
No, I don't, because I'm going to be the point. You're not a piece of, you're not ornamental. You're supposed to be achieving something. I mean, the Vietnamese have done this. The boat people, many of them have gone back home. The Indians have done this. I mean, they're all over Silicon Valley, and they've taken so much back to India. So it's not unprecedented by any means. I mean, this happens and has been done and is being done. And so there are lessons to be learned from other communities. How has this worked? How might this work? What should you stop doing? What should you start doing? I mean, there's a host of things that I suggest they would have to pay attention to really be able to add value both ways, both for the people on the ground, the state itself, and of course for the diasporans. As I said before, if you're not getting a good return on investment, you might as well take your money elsewhere. Look, it's this situation we have at home with regard to security is not going to cure itself. It's going to take the sustained effort of all of us, and I mean sustained and strategic and very sensible. I mean, I've nothing against street protests or anything like that, but it's easier to start these things than to control them and then stop them. So that's not what you want. You want a more strategic approach to what needs to be done in the state. And as I said, you're going to have to pick and choose what you can do in the short term, the medium term, and of course, what has to wait for the long term.
I'm going to quickly digress a little bit now and concentrate on your experience. As a chairperson of this team, it's obvious, it's visible to the blind and audible to the deaf that you did a wonderful job. But on my capacity, I would like to put it to you this way. What was the biggest challenge?
I would say for all the many things we wanted to do, it was making the tough choices around what could be done within the time frame that we were given and the envelope we were given in terms of budget. Of course, COVID, blew all that out of the water. But even without COVID, so the tree planting, for example, someone might argue that it's long-term, or, the question, how many trees do you need to plant to close the delta between, what we're losing and what we could be gaining? You could go on and on and on. The point is, we were very intent on making sure that the entire state was engaged in what was going to be a celebration. That if there were ceremonies, it wouldn't just be, a march past at the stadium, that it would actually involve school children in particular. And this is where your plus comes in. It's a dose state at 30 plus, okay? And this is where your plus comes in, that you managed to galvanize younger generations to be fully involved. And so we had a host of activities that were focused, school children, university students, et cetera, including talk shows and, question and answers, time with the governor, time with the deputy governor, et cetera, so that in fact, one piece of work that we'd really like to still do was to interview 30 year-olds, born in 1991, from all over the world now, in the diaspora, at home, in Benin, all over the country, all over the world, literally, to get their perspectives, their personal histories, their personal experiences, their sense of the state as is now, and their aspirations for its future, and of course their own futures. That's something that I'm really, really keen to do, and I hope we can still pull it off.
Wow. We have a lot of people commenting already on a different platform.
Mhm.
We would not be taking those questions or comment yet. I just want to quickly take advantage because moment like this doesn't come that often to have our mom joining us today. I want to quickly slide this in that we appreciate your time. We know you are very busy.
Thank you.
Now, on the flip side, when was your aha moment? We say, yes, this is it.
When the governor decided on the tree planting, I mean, it pulls the entire ethos of the anniversary together. The past, what the forests were, particularly in economic terms, and what we've lost. And so that's where we are now in terms of what we've lost. And the future, of course, is when you begin to plant and nurture the reforestation, you see. For me, it encapsulated everything that we wanted to do initially. And we had school children, of course, planting trees side by side with the governor, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, they'd never seen the governor before in person, obviously. But this was great. And it was children from the vicinity. So it's not like we shipped in a bunch of kids from, halfway across the state. These were children who will remember that they were involved in the tree planting and that these are their trees, and that they should look out for the trees and they will be the beneficiaries of tree planting and the reforestation as a whole.
Now,
So that for me was the aha moment, yes.
wow. Moving from the aha moment, while still in the spirit of aha moment, how will you rate the current Edo State government? How will you rate their success?
It's one of the most progressive in the country, obviously.
How
It's
so?
a very conscious administration.
How so?
Well, it's conscious in the sense that it's very aware of the issues. And the other thing is it has a vision for the state, a very clear vision for the state. And, it's like Lego, the children's game Lego, when you've got all these pieces, a million pieces, and you've got to make something tangible out of all those pieces. Edo State is a bit like Legoland now. There's so many possibilities, and a lot of the pieces are there. But you've got to put them together into tangible wholes, if you see what I mean. So you've got a very progressive administration, I think. You've got a lot of young people in the administration. I mean, generally speaking, when I go to meetings, I'm one of the oldest people, probably 10 or 12 in the room, which is very refreshing, I have to say. And I think challenging for both sides of that age cohort. It's a pretty wide cohort from 35, all the way to 60 something. I think that's very, very good. And it is the cohort that we are the stakeholders. In addition to the children, we are the stakeholders in the state. And so I remember the referendum. It was a year before we returned, we came to Nigeria from England. But I remember the referendum and the pride in the referendum. We came to Nigeria in 1964, and the referendum had taken place in 1963. And through my grandfather, I met some of the players. I was just, 10 years old or something? But we are a history-making people. And we therefore, in my view, and I think in the view of the governor and many, many people, we are a people who can change our future. The projections now are pretty dire. I mean, if you stay steady state, it's not looking good. But if we'd make the right decisions and take the right steps now, the tree planting is symbolic, as I said, at this point, because it was 200,000? Yes, 200,000 trees invested. But when you're talking about 10 million trees over 10 years, and possibly more, depending on how many trees we cut down every year. I mean, this is a very important thing. It is a state with tremendous potential, and it's almost painful to say that because that's like a mantra in Nigeria. Nigeria is a country with tremendous potential. How do we realize that potential? I think you've got in place now an administration that's not just interested in potential, but in the realization of potential. And all the big pieces,
but talking about the realization, how can you ensure that after 36 months, this project will keep going? It will not become one of the abandoned project?
Well, this is where democracy comes in, and who do we vote for? I mean, if we don't vote for the right people for the right reasons, then obviously we're doomed. And the painful part now is that if we retreat from the progress we're making now, and if we fail to build on the foundations that we're laying now, you know how it is. If we backslide, it will take us longer to recover from that retreat.
So, but the danger of, let's say the governor will be like, we say, I identify this man, will keep my legacy. Let me throw my support on this man to take after me. Let's take that for example.
Well, he doesn't want to be a godfather. Remember that.
That's what I'm driving at. You caught me. That was what I'm driving at.
I mean, that would be anathema, considering the struggle that he himself went through. On the other hand, I think it will be simply sensible to endorse a strong candidate. I mean, he's a party man. He's a PDP man. So I would imagine that he would back someone from the PDP who is clearly a strong candidate, not just all sorts of frivolous reasons, for which people will vote for a completely unsatisfactory person. I hope that we don't fall into that trap.
Permit me to leverage on your personal experience,
Yes.
given the fact that you were once a diasporan. And as a matter of fact, you are in Lagos right now, you are still a diasporan. So as far as I'm
Actually,
concerned.
I'm in Benin a lot. I shuttle between the two.
Yeah, so this may help us watching this program from diaspora. How did you settle? Living the UK, I believe you were in the UK from my research, and going to Nigeria, settling there, and maybe shuttle around. How did you make that move, and what sustained you?
Well, I left the World Bank I think my terminal leave ended in January 2013. And time flies, my goodness. Yes. I came from Washington, not from London. I came from Washington, DC. I sold my house, and I waited to a certain extent. I sold the house and then rented an apartment just to give our last child, time to finish college. He, by the way, went to college in Canada, in Montreal. It took, I think, another 2 years or so for her to finish college. And then I ostensibly came back completely to Nigeria. I mean, it wasn't a big wrench because I was in and out of Nigeria. I've never really turned my back on the country. So I was in and out of Nigeria a lot. My husband was already here, so it made a lot of sense. You haven't asked this question, but I sometimes look in the mirror and I ask myself, was it a good move? And I think it was. I'd do it again. I don't think I'd do anything necessarily differently. For the simple reason that you get to an age where you should be in your own country, I think. I mean, this is my personal view. After a certain age, and to the extent possible, one of the justifications for that is to be able to give a little back. If you've been away for a while, then you do have, again, it's nostalgia to a certain extent, but you do want to give back if you can. And so that was a very compelling reason for us to come back to the country.
Wow. At this point, we're going to be going on a commercial break. Before we go on a commercial break, when we come back, we're going to be talking about the futuristic part of Edo State, which is the plus. And we'll also talk about how the plus came about and how do we achieve it. It's one thing to set a goal. It's another thing to have a blueprint. There's another thing to know that this goal is achievable or not achievable. Again, my name is Kenny Bazwa. You are on Kenny Bazwa World Outreach. Do not touch that dial. We'll see you on the other side.
Do you want to be your own boss and make income or extra income with flexible schedule? Welcome to Keenan Courier. Keenan Courier works as a marketplace platform connecting customers who need something delivered with drivers that are willing to serve them. Courier with any vehicle, better trip allocation, and cash out your earnings whenever you want. Download our driver apps today to sign up.
State will be 30 years old on the 27th of August 2021. Ours is a land with an enduring monarchy of global acclaim. It is a land filled with distinguished sons and daughters defining and holding their own in all spheres of human endeavor, both at home.
Welcome back to Kenny Bars World Outreach. If you're just joining us, I have Mrs. Julia Oyego on the other side joining us.
Actually, it's Odigye Oyego.
Odigye Oyego.
Yes.
I take that back. Thank you for at least that correction. Thank you very much.
That's fine.
We're talking about Edo State at 30 plus. I am very humble and delighted to be in our presence today. You have a Wikipedia of knowledge, madam, and we pray to one day maybe come close to that footstep that you're just laying down for us. And thank you, and I thank God for your life, exemplary life that you have lived. Let me not bore you with this compliment. Let's quickly drill down to why we are here. Before we went on commercial break, we were talking about how the process, what you did, how do we get to where we are. We quickly talked about the progress of the states and so on. Now let's talk about the future. Because at the end, if this future cannot hold, all the effort are wasted. And we don't want to do that. And in my own research, many of us that are involved in this do not have a record of failing. And I know that this will not fail. So what do you see in the future? Let's start from the diasporans now.
Yes. So the governor ran on a campaign called Making Edo Great Again. So
go ahead, ma'am, no worries. We understand you're home. We can't hear you. You're on mute now, ma'am. Maybe you may want to unmute yourself. Can you hear me? All right, we may be having some audio issue. We couldn't hear her. I know she was in the midst of explaining.
Yes.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, let me just see if I...
So she was explaining how in the way and what the government has promised. In her word, she goes, the government has run on making Edo great again. And I believe that she was about to explain how that will play into the future. We're going to take a second break. When we come back, we'll allow her to explain what she thinks about the future and how that tied into the campaign promise of the governor. We'll see you on the other side. Is she back? Are you there, ma'am?
Yes, I'm back.
All right,
Sorry
I was quickly going to go on break, but we'll just take you so that we'll relieve you. Tell us a little bit about, you were saying the governor ran on making Edo great again. And my question was, what is the future?
Well, there are 6 pillars. I mean, as you might well imagine, obviously safety and security is one of them. Education is huge, infrastructure is huge, et cetera, et cetera. It's all online. He ran on those 6 pillars of making Edo great again. It's called the MEGA agenda, MEGA. And I remember at the time people were saying, but that sounds like Donald Trump making America great again. So no, it's not Donald Trump, it's Godwin Obaseki, and it's Edo State, and it's very relevant. And so what's happening now, the public service and the civil service are undergoing a process of transformation so that they can coalesce their focus areas around these 6 pillars. So it's like a race to the finish, really, given that we've only got about 36 months left. But it's making sure that the MDAs are organized around the execution of these 6 pillars, the performance around these 6 pillars. And as I said, it's all online. I mean, it's all, open information. And one of the great things about it is that the governor is setting up a communications agency, an Edo State Government Communications Agency. It's called ECHO, ECO, which will make all this information fully available to the public. He will interact, and his officers will interact much more with the public. The public will find government much more people facing, citizen facing, resident facing, more accessible, more open, more transparent, more accountable, more informative. And it'll be communications in the real sense, two-way communications. We'll learn from you, you'll learn from us, etc. So it's going to be interactive. So very excited about that. I was also the chairperson for the advisory council for that.
Now,
it's brilliant
being the chairperson as the advisory council, how do you separate that entity from the government? Many a times, what ends up happening is that they become an arm of government that is only singing the praise.
An arm of government.
Yes, but at the
an arm
end,
of government.
they will not benefit the general populace in the sense that they will only end up singing the praise of the government. How do we blanket that tiny line?
Well, one of the departments for this new ECHO, Edo State Communications Office or Organization, is community relations. So a big piece of this is community relations, huge piece. You might call it, it's like consumer affairs, ombuds, etc., etc. But it really is the place where there will be a two-way interface between governed and governor, between governed and government. It's civil society. And we're hoping that this will help to galvanize civil society in a more organized fashion, by the way, because it's a bit disparate right now. There's a great guy that is a wonderful interface between, I think, government and civil society. A guy called Austin Osakwe. I think he's wonderful. I met him last year. I remember because my father's name was Austin. And he has such a way. He has such a way with communities and civil society. He's also a lawyer, which of course endears him to my heart to no end. But it's, there are very good people in the state, in and around the state, and people in the diaspora who are willing to come back home to help with these things, to help run these agencies, these MDAs, so that if you institutionalize, they're not likely to go with the current dispensation. If you can get those roots down well enough, they will survive at the end of this dispensation, this administration, and will be able to, like a relay race. And you see, the more we are skilled at this kind of passing the baton from one administration to the next, the more resilient the democracy itself will be. I mean, this is my pet theory, if you like.
In our preparation for this show, correct me if I'm wrong, you are also into labor laws, right?
Yes.
So tell us, looking at it from the lens of a lawyer, a labor law lawyer, how is Edo State doing in terms of employment?
Well, we actually have an agency now called Edo Jobs. It's run by a young woman called Ukinebo Dare, who's my namesake. We have so many names, but she's a brilliant young woman. She was doing this work on a private basis out of Lagos, and the governor invited her to Edo State to help us do this for youth who were coming back from all kinds of outlandish places with no hope of employment whatsoever. And she's really helped to get them job ready. So the agency is called Edo Jobs. Of course, all these things are online. And that's another thing I will say to the diaspora, that really try to familiarize yourselves with what is on ground, what already exists. Because sometimes when we come from outside, having been away for a while, we're very gung-ho and we think we've got the latest great idea. Now that's something that people on ground who've been working hard definitely resent. What do you think? We've been twiddling our thumbs all this time? So there's tremendous things happening on ground already at the grassroots level, government, et cetera, et cetera. So the thing is, that the old saying that when, where chicken, stands on one claw first, and then when it knows its surroundings, is familiar with its environment, then it puts the other claw down. I think that would be a great way to do things. Hitting the ground running would be starting with get to know the environment, get to know what's going on, get to know who the players are, so that you're not seen to be an interloper, as it were.
Here is my last question. Sure. I'm happy that the government has the initiative of setting up an agency, an arm that can function as a two-way between the government and governor, the community, and so on. Identifying the diaspora, as we all have agreed, that they're already an existing community, which is also diasporans. They are also from Edo State. What plans does this agency have to involve the diasporans in this new methodology of disseminating information?
Are you talking about the ECHO, or
Yes.
are you talking about the Diaspora Agency?
Yeah, the ECHO.
Well, the ECHO should be working with the Diaspora Agency and vice versa. I mean, this is the whole point of setting up a Diaspora Agency. Once they're on ground and they are well connected, they will know exactly where to leverage their influence and how. And that will include the communications agency itself, if you see what I mean. God knows I've been in so many situations where I'm, the new kid on the block, and you have to get to know the big wigs, if you like, on the block. You're the newcomer, you're the alien, and you have to try and find out where you can leverage your skills and influence, but you can't do that alone. No man is an island. A tree won't make a forest, to continue that metaphor. So I would expect that the diaspora will come in and will make sure that the agency is well connected to what's already happening on ground, and that it becomes a team player.
Wow. I must say this, it was indeed, like I said from my opening remark, it's delightful to spend this very time with you. Hopefully we'll have you again. Before we let you go, what advice do you have for our young youth at home, the ones in diaspora? What would be your motherly advice to us?
Well, the thing that's always touched my heart is that we don't lose the best of our values. We are responsible to one another and for one another. It's very important that as people from Edo State, we're not afraid to be who we are, that we don't lose our sense of identity, our sense of values. We're a very noble people at the best of times, but there's also the tendency for us to be very ignoble people at the worst of times. And so what I would say to us is understand where you're coming from, where we're all coming from. We were accountable to one another, accountable for one another. That ought to be a permanent feature of who we are. We lose that, we lose ourselves.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I am very positive that our people at home watching, they have assimilated a lot of information that you have disbursed today. Thank you once again, madam. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end for today. Thank you for supporting us. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. If you're on Facebook, like our page, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. If you haven't downloaded our live app, it's absolutely free. Download our app on Android or iOS. It's free. You can watch movies every live. And guess what? You get notifications when you have your favorite programs live. Thank you again. My name remains Kenny Bazwaye, and I always say that to everybody. I'm arrogantly Edo man. Don't touch that dial. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday and happy Labor Day.
Do you want to be your own boss and make income or extra income with flexible schedule? Welcome to Keenan Courier. Keenan Courier works as a marketplace platform connecting customers who need something delivered with drivers that are willing to serve them. Courier with any vehicle, better trip allocation, and cash out your earnings whenever you want. Download our driver apps today to sign up. Do you want to be your own?
Will be 30 years old on the 27th of August 2021. Ours is a land with an enduring monarchy of global acclaim. It is a land filled with distinguished sons and daughters defining and holding their own in all spheres of human endeavor, both at home and in the diaspora. We are a people of confidence and excellence, steeped in values, culture, courage, respect, and measured wisdom. Let us celebrate our Edo-ness. God bless